Welcome to Brainstoryum. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author, and yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 83 of Brainstoryum. Now, I mentioned last time about how we give a story what it needs. So while I'm still exploring fight scenes and how to write them, and I have a final bit on that topic today, I am, as ever, completely open to what the Exquisite Corpse writing prompts prompt me to write. Also, I think I said something last time about stories showing us what we need. Well, this has become very evident to me since the last show, perhaps amusingly so. The story I began drafting from a prompt in that episode was about a woman who discovers a strange garden cafe full of discarded golden clocks and a banshee who promises her a cure for her indecisiveness. It felt very Alice in Wonderland, and at the end of the part I read out on the show, which is the first part, the protagonist is presented with a magical doorknob that will take her into different worlds. I kept writing it, developing it, all the while being a little unsure where she's going to end up. But I've been loving this experiment and found myself realising just how much I needed this escapism. For one thing and another, lately I've been working from home a lot. My husband's just had major surgery. I haven't been feeling that great in myself, and we've both been getting a bit of cabin fever. So it's interesting that a story led me down this very experimental path, just very fun and different, and a discovery piece, I'd say. Fantasy really is the most playful of all the genres, and it doesn't always have to end up with a gigantic battle between good and evil. Traditionally, it's a tale told from the point of view of an individual on a journey which changes them. But this can be like an undercurrent to a story, which can be as wildly imagined as you like. And I like. And what made me laugh out loud while writing this story was when I realised just how much of a mirror it was holding up to me. Having followed the white rabbit of this story for about a week and a half since recording the podcast and recording that first part, and since developing the new scenes as the protagonist uses her magical doorknob to open a way into various different places, I hit a bit of a block because there are almost too many choices with what I could do with this. And now I too need a cure for indecisiveness. Just like her. And so that's the universe's little joke, opening me up to a story like this, showing me what I need and also what I need to get past. Ho-hum! What can you do with too many choices? Sometimes the blank page can be daunting because you can literally take any path. Using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse is a great way to narrow down those overwhelming choices, giving you a unique challenge to see if you can make sense of a little bit of nonsense. Anyway, as promised, I have some more to share with you on what I'm learning from Marie Brennan's book, Writing Fight Scenes. Now, as someone who doesn't deliberately set out to write fiction that is centred around fights or martial arts, I basically want to brush up on my skills and develop more confidence when it comes to fights. I particularly like the crossover areas in this topic, where the general rules around what works for fight scenes also works for just scenes. It makes me feel less like a fish out of water too, because these principles seem to build on what I already know to some extent, rather than seeming like brand new information that is just specialist. Marie Brennan says every fight scene needs to have a purpose. This purpose can stem from both inside the story, that is, the character's own journey, and from outside the story, meaning the general structure of the plot and where you want it to go. Now, there'll be overarching reasons why fight scenes are generally going to happen in any story. These could be things like revenge, a vendetta, or whatever cause your protagonist is likely to care about that much. They might even live in a violent society, meaning that fight scenes are going to be unavoidable in any case. But Brennan emphasises the importance of breaking down your story into parts and ensuring that each and every fight scene, not just the overall fight, is there for a particular reason. And deciding these reasons will affect how you write a scene, how hard the protagonist will fight, how well prepared they are, both psychologically and with weapons, and so on. Many different aspects that will feed into the way you approach each individual fight scene. So examples of character-based reasons for a fight scene are to survive, as in defending themselves, to escape a particular situation, which might involve either avoiding combat if they're trying to get away, or incapacitating the enemy just enough so they can get away. To attack, which might be to stop someone from carrying out some heinous deed. You have to ask, how far would my character go? Would he or she injure or kill? To warn off someone would be an example of intending to just injure or find some other way to show the enemy that you're a notable threat. Maybe your character wants a challenge to prove themselves. Impress someone? That would affect the way that you write the scene. To physically get past some opponents to reach a thing or place or a person that the enemy is hiding or protecting. For example, to get to a guarded door, or to a kidnapped loved one, or to reach some secret weapon or magical object they're trying to get hold of. Another character-based purpose of a fight scene might be to capture the enemy, bring them back alive, in which case they'd have to be careful and restrained about what weapons they use and how they fight. Brennan says that a fight scene should reflect who the characters are in the most interesting way possible. Loads to think about this already from this perspective. Examples of story-based reasons for a fight may include creating obstacles in the character's path to keep the story interesting, showing off your protagonist's talents, stretching them, helping them discover something new about themselves or something they didn't know before. It sounds kind of like a character-based reason, but really it's about viewing them from the outside, from the plot's perspective, rather than from what they personally are wanting to do or achieve. You are the mini-god throwing problems at them from above for a grander purpose than what they want. Another purpose would be to show the protagonist's limits and weaknesses, which even they may not perceive. To build up tension, one example of that is if the character is holding back one particular weapon or tactic which carries high risk and could be catastrophic, or which they've promised they'll never use, or would only use in dire circumstances. What happens when they end up using it? Another way would be, or another reason would be to prove the protagonist's wrong attitude, foolishness, or some other belief or characteristic that you want the story to challenge in them. Now, this is where character reasons and story reasons really do cross over. But as I like to say, character and plot truly are two sides of the same coin when you start delving into these intricacies of storytelling. Finally, it made me giggle when Marie Brennan said that a perfectly legitimate reason for putting a fight scene into a story is because it would be cool. She says this is not inherently a bad answer. That's at least partially the answer behind every fight scene I write, but it probably shouldn't be the only one unless you know you're writing for the sort of audience that will eat it up. So if we just approach fight scenes with the same level of consideration as any other scene we're writing, asking how will it fit, what will it do for the story arc overall, and what is the protagonist learning or struggling with here that is central to her or his story, then we have the best chance of keeping our readers glued to the page instead of rolling their eyes and wondering if they should skip on to the next one. I know that whenever I come across the need to write a fight scene, I will probably return to my notes on these last 3 episodes or go straight back to Marie Brennan's book to remind myself that writing fight scenes doesn't have to be anywhere near as scary for me as it might be for my protagonist. Right, so before we move on to some brand new story brainstorms, it's time to share some of the brilliant ideas and microfiction sent in by my talented listeners. Some wrote about the unwound banshee, a curious phrase generated by the Socks of Destiny in the last show. Paul Benfield said, "A banshee is cursed by a witch for having slain the latter's lover with her deadly scream. The banshee slowly turns to a fully sized woolen doll version of herself. She can still use her deadly voice, but each time she does, a part of her starts to unravel. This enrages her, but her anger leads to screams and more unwinding. She is soon lying, barely a hint of her former self, yet kept alive by the magic of the curse." Ooh, I love it. Very dark. So creepy. And I like the poetic justice here. As a harbinger of death, the banshee herself is now caught in this cursed state between life and death. Thank you, Paul. Aside from the unwound banshee, there was another word combination that had inspired some others. The clawed tombstone. Elena Dennison wrote a poem based on this. Neat letters of a name, gold on black stone, buffeted by time and rain. And in a corner, crudely clawed but deep, a tiny heart and Jesus' cross. Spooky and sort of gothic romantic. I feel the rain in this poem as I read it, and it made me wonder who scored the heart and cross. I imagine tiny little hands etching the images. Very evocative. Thank you, Elena, for your poem. Back to the unwound banshee, Nick Vrakar wrote this mini scene. Cara was at the library bar, a book in one hand, a drink in the other. Claire approached the banshee with a cautious, "Hi." She jolted upright, nearly spilling her drink. "What? Oh, hi. You startled me while I was relaxing." "This is relaxed?" I am, I am so unwound. Brilliant. Another way of being unwound. Relaxed. Although whether this banshee is ever truly relaxed is highly questionable. Thank you, Nick, for throwing in a bit of humour amongst the darkness. Alessandro Bozzo went ahead and combined the two prompts in one. He wrote, "The unwound banshee wailed at the clawed tombstone. The scattered dirt by the hole at its base confirmed her suspicions. He had finally returned, and with his arrival, her one and only chance at redemption. She let out a defiant shriek and set off to find some answers." Well, this feels like the beginning of something powerful and dark. Alessandro added, "A scary but misunderstood main character who can still find peace in the end. I was wondering about her being unwound. I'm thinking of the banshee having had a physical ribbon wound around her wrists, marriage ceremony, when she was alive, before being betrayed by her spouse." Lots going on here. This is ripe for exploration. Thank you, Alessandro. Well, it is now time to stretch our imaginations once more and consider 3 new random suggestions which can only come from the socks of destiny. That's right, and for those who haven't listened before or played before, Exquisite Corpse mixes words and phrases of different players into a single sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. So it will make grammatical sense, if nothing else, to start with. The rest of the sense is for us to work out. So I'm going to reach into the first describing word sock. And this is from Paul Thomas. Susurrant. So someone or something that is making a kind of murmuring, whispering sound. Interesting. Let's see who or what was susurrant. As I reach for a noun, I'll try and unhook this one from the rest. This is from Mariah. Hat. The susurrant hat. We have a whispering hat. That is quite a strange idea. Physical idea. Let's reach for an action. This is from Sean at Blue Wizard Facts. Challenged to a rematch. So this implies that this susurrant hat, or character wearing a susurrant hat, or something that appears to be a murmuring hat, has already had some kind of battle with whatever or whoever is coming up next. And they want a rematch. Okay, next describing word. This is getting weirder and weirder, as it should. Is also from Paul Thomas. Ecstatic. Okay, so whoever it is very joyful, whether because of the rematch or in spite of it. That's something to think about. So our final word, God, oh dear, the final word is from Paul Benfield. Egret. So I think that's similar to a heron, typically white, I believe, instead of grey, possibly. So let's just read the entire Exquisite Corpse, which is the susurrant hat. Gotta love that. Challenged to a rematch, the ecstatic egret. Wow, that is incredibly weird. Well, the murmuring hat, this susurrant hat, definitely makes me think of a creature that's that's hiding within it, or some kind of monster that hides its appearance using a very odd hat that perhaps stretches right over them or gives them invisibility or something like that. And you could make it quite creepy, the fact that they can only speak in a whisper or only choose to speak in a whisper. But even so, this is very bizarre. The challenge to a rematch and the fact that we have, I'm not sure I can do anything with ecstatic egret unless they have weird names, don't they? Wrestling champions. So I'm not suggesting anyone would actually call themselves the ecstatic egret, but maybe they have, maybe they would call themselves the egret or some other bird-like title if they are comparing themselves to a graceful, strong creature that, has jabbing strikes or something like that. Or they have a long beaky nose, something tall, skinny. Perhaps that's their symbol or mascot, something like that. And the idea that they're an ecstatic egret, well, perhaps they expect to do very well in this particular fight, even though it's the susurrant hat that has challenged them to a rematch. I think, I'm not sure about this one. I am very curious about this susurrant hat. Don't get me wrong. I almost feel like I might have a strange dream about a susurrant hat. And what could be under it, This whole thing about not revealing what a monster is like, until the dire last moment, because that build-up of suspense of, what is it? What does it look like? What does it do? This would be perfectly fulfilled by a hat that covers or partially covers a creature, so you can't see it until a very scary moment. So, yeah, I might have a dream about it, but I might write a story about it, but I'm not sure it would be in a wrestling match. And this is why I'm moving straight on to the next Exquisite Corpse. Although, hey, I always do 3 anyway, so this must happen. The new Exquisite Corpse begins with a word from Paul Benfield. Sand encrusted. This feels like a very physical thing. Something that is sand encrusted. Well, it's encrusted with sand. So the next word is from Riley B. Guinea pig. A sand-encrusted guinea pig. Do you know what this immediately makes me think of, even though it has nothing to do with sand? I think it's just because it's a guinea pig. If you've ever read The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis, it's actually the first book in the Chronicles of Narnia, where they go to this wood between the worlds, very sleepy, magical forest, where there are many, many of these ponds where you can jump into a pond and end up in a completely different world. It's amazing. It's probably my favourite of the whole Chronicles of Narnia. Anyway, there's a guinea pig, because a guinea pig has been experimented on with this method of moving between worlds by an evil, scary uncle who reckons he's a magician and a scientist, or maybe a mix of both, by attaching a magic ring to the guinea pig. And this guinea pig is left hoppity-hopping, or it's kind of, well, they don't really hop, but they sort of stumble around, strolling around this sleepy forest forevermore. And yeah, if there was a little sand there, it would get sand encrusted. I think it was more mud encrusted, but I'm rambling on here about guinea pigs, which may or may not be sand encrusted. Let's move on to the next word or phrase, which will be an action. Oops. Oh, they're all fighting to get out of me. From Paul Thomas. Looked askance at. Okay, a curious guinea pig. Is this a real guinea pig or someone that has a nickname of the guinea pig for some reason? Oh, someone who's been experimented on perhaps. It's interesting because they have traditionally been experimented on, poor things. Next word is from Mariah. Arduous. Okay, so that involves hard work. Final word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Pontianak. Okay, so this word, I don't even know if I've pronounced it correctly, wasn't even in my Oxford Concise Dictionary, although there's a slightly old dictionary, so I've had to Google it. In Malaysian and Indonesian folklore, a Pontianak is a female vampire or blood-sucking demon, often depicted as the spirit of a woman who died in childbirth. Good grief, I did not know this existed in folklore, of course. So we have a curious, exquisite corpse, a sand-encrusted guinea pig who looked askance at, suspiciously at, an arduous Pontianak, this spirit of a poor woman who's died and turned into a blood-sucking demon. This feels very dark. I would just say arduous Pontianak? Yes, because labour is hard labour, particularly, in this situation where someone has passed on because of it. Sand-encrusted guinea pig. Why would that look askance at an arduous Pontianak? For some reason, I'm imagining a room full of old paintings. Are they band paintings of strange creatures and situations? And they would seem to look at each other. This is a very creepy image. So a guinea pig that is, I don't know, for some reason has been scampering around in the sand. A desert guinea pig, is there such a thing? And now that these paintings are all gathered in this room, is it an attic room? Is it a museum? Well, it can't be a museum if it's been banned, unless it's a back room in a museum. I like the idea of somebody's attic, someone who's collecting strange artwork. And I like the idea of banned artwork. I mean, perhaps it's not in this world because that's quite an unusual thing to happen, especially when you can just say, hey, it's mythological. What's your problem? It's just a story. But yes, this is a curious image. I quite like it. It's quite spooky, but I'm going to move on to the third and final exquisite corpse to see what else I have for my choice today. The first word is from Alessandro Bozzo, stoic. Right, so someone with a stoic perspective on life. Next word is from our noun. It's from Paul Benfield. Parasol. What's a stoic parasol? So that's just like one of those little umbrellas. Could be an umbrella for a cocktail. Why do I keep thinking about cocktails? Let's have a look. Our action is from Mariah. Sang a duet with. Right, so we have a singing parasol. Curiouser and curiouser. Let's see. Next word is from Dave. Broken. Ooh, something or someone singing who is broken. Final word. Oh, Paul Benfield again. I just feel like it's your show today, Paul Benfield. Wendigo. So it's another mythological being, but let me just check what that means. Dr. Google says, a Wendigo is a mythological creature from Algonquian folklore, often depicted as a malevolent, cannibalistic spirit or monster associated with winter and hunger. It's believed to be a creature of immense size and strength, emaciated, but with a powerful desire to consume human flesh. Well, we've just had a Pontianak in the last Exquisite Corpse. There's a lot of demonic hunger going on here. In some stories, the Wendigo can possess humans, leading them to commit cannibalistic acts. Yikes! So, but this is coupled with a stoic parasol? Because the entire Exquisite Corpse is the stoic parasol sang a duet with the broken Wendigo. Sounds like a Wendigo's already broken no matter what you do. This demonic, hungry spirit. Now, it would make slightly more sense if it had just been the other way round. So the broken Wendigo sang a duet with the stoic parasol, because with can mean you simply have that thing on you. Even though that seems just as unlikely that a Wendigo would burst into song with a parasol. I mean, what is that? Some kind of dodgy musical theatre? Oh, this is very, very strange indeed. And what kind of a duet would they... Actually, it's singing a duet. It forces us to consider the stoic parasol to be a kind of person. Otherwise, how is that a duet? It's not just a song. It's a song sung by two people. This is a very tricky one. I think if we were going to resolve it perfectly, interpret it exactly, then you're going down a very surreal pathway where you have singing parasols, doing a little dance with a broken Wendigo. Ooh, very unlikely. Well, I have 3 Exquisite Corpses. My challenge is to write a scene or a story based on one of them. So I think I will have some green tea and think about it with the help of the pause button and see what I come up with. Okay. He was a man who made excuses, who preferred to do things when no one was looking. But the simple fact was, you can never tell if someone might be there, watching. Horace had always fancied himself a businessman, an entrepreneur, but after a lifetime of starting projects that never took off, he'd learned to keep quiet about them and keep them small. When he looked back over his mediocre career in banking, his business ideas were like little flashes along the tracks, sparks that had made his heart leap, however briefly. Well, there was always room for one more. Horace ran his fingertip over the gilt edge of the painting's frame. To think he was only here in this littered, sour-smelling alleyway to sneak his broken vacuum cleaner into the skip. That was what made this all the more unlikely. For something so valuable, so precious, to just land in his lap like this, as if it had fallen from the sky. He tipped his head back with a wince, His neck and shoulders were getting stooped these days, and gazed into the deep blue above. Just an oblong of it was visible here, shunted into a squat shape by these tall, ugly buildings, but no matter. It was a piece of blue cut out just for him. For a soft beat, his eyes shone with a young man's wonder again. And what a beauty of a painting! His head sang with the strangeness of it. A woman, her features obscured by her bowed head and wind-flung dark hair, contemplated the fullness of her pregnant belly with something like rage. Was that it? The more Horace looked, the more he struggled to pinpoint the origin of this impression. Maybe he imagined it or misinterpreted it. He didn't know much about art, but it struck him that something like anger brewed in the sideways strokes of the brush. The sweeps of oil paint that rounded her belly in white, with purple-grey for shadows, deepening the perspective. Curvatures that seemed to vibrate. He almost didn't dare touch it. Stupid, take it. He glanced around him, checking no one was watching, and lifted the painting from the ground. Behind it, another, and another, two much smaller paintings. One, quite boring to look at, just some cups and fruit piled on a table, but still an oil painting, and it might still fetch a decent price. The last one, a square image of a beach, dotted with people like smudged exclamation marks, foggy in the summer sun. He hesitated, then smiled. 3 paintings were better than 1. It would be more believable at an auction too, if he had more than one picture to sell. He might be able to pass himself off as an expert, a collector. And so it was that Horace trundled back to his house, lugging 3 paintings, whistling under his breath, as his chest expanded with his new money-making scheme. Why had he never thought of art before? People paid crazy amounts for weird stuff like this. Maybe he could find more artwork in charity shops and recycling centres, the things people chucked away without a thought. He could start something, clear out his attic. Back home, stomping up the stairs, singing at the top of his lungs, he didn't notice the sand that trickled down the steps, scattering over his shoes, until it was too late. The night before, a very different figure lurked in the same alleyway. Tall, young, with a stride that matched his youth. Slim, possibly lean, it was hard to tell under the cloak that swooped around him as he crouched, setting down 3 paintings against the side of a skip. The third and largest painting he held the most gingerly as he propped it over the other 2. "Wait for me, my darling," he whispered. "I'll get you what you need." The woman in the painting jerked her head from side to side. Her dark hair snaked and swirled as if under water. It might have been a trick of the light, except that a low snarl rippled from the canvas. "When?" she said. "Who?" "It's okay." The man brushed a finger against her hair, looping it away from her face. "I know you need to feed on someone who believes in magic. I've done what I can to the other paintings. The trap is set. Trust me, as soon as someone sees what happens to the other 2, they'll believe. Then you'll feast, my darling, and I know that'll be enough. Enough for you to come with me, so we can be together." The surface of the picture undulated. The canvas nudged outwards as the woman pressed her hand towards it. With an effort, her fingertips pushed through, real skin crackling the paint. The man sighed with desire, brushing his own fingers over hers. He shuddered with anticipation, or cold. "When you're out of this painting, will you be warm?" The woman pulled back, seeming to drink of the night air. Her fingers retracted and the painting re-smoothed itself. "I will be everything." In his attic, Horace hummed a jolly tune as he shoved aside his old junk and made space for his new finds. These old shelves, they were rickety and needed dismantling and chucking out, but they would do for now, just to rest his prizes upright and away from the dusty corners of the room. The mid-morning sun slanted through the narrow window, turning dust motes in a slow dance. Something crunched under his foot. What was this? A line of sand? But there weren't any sandbags up here. He sucked in a breath. The beach painting. Jaw sagging, heart thumping, he bent to survey the damage. From the bottom left corner of the painting, a seep of fine, gritty sand. It couldn't be. That was impossible. But the beach scene was now on a slant, as if it had lost the very sand that spilled onto his bare floorboards and under his feet. Eyes darting wildly aside, Horace's gaze fell on the other small painting, which was now a chaotic jumble of cups and fruit, as if by carrying it up the stairs at a jaunt, the contents had been bumped around. Strawberries lay squashed and dripping on the white tablecloth, but still an oil painting. He reached out a shaking hand, a wetness on his fingertip. He sniffed it, touched it to his tongue. A bright burst of strawberry flavour. It was real. Breathless with disbelief, his pulse now hammering in his ears, he looked to the painting of the pregnant woman. A finger crooked to beckon him close. "Hello there," she breathed. "Do you believe in magic?" "I do now," he muttered, his last words before the screaming began. Horace was a man who made excuses, who preferred to do things when no one was looking. But the simple fact was, you can never tell if someone might be there, watching. Well, that was mighty creepy. Where did that come from? Maybe I was stirred to a dark and haunting place by my listeners' stories around the unwound banshee and the clawed tombstone. So, did I interpret the Exquisite Corpse okay? It was, of course. The sand-encrusted guinea pig looked askance at the arduous Pontiac. Loosely, though. I suppose Horace is not so much a guinea pig in this situation than a meal for a Pontiac. And I can't comment on how arduous her character is, or might have been before she became a demon trapped inside a painting. Then again, I know for sure I would never have written this story without playing the word game of Exquisite Corpse. And it's those very words of my dear listeners, that led me down this strange, very creepy path. So what path might you be beckoned down? We've had a broken Wendigo, although that was holding a stoic parasol. What about the susurrant hat? I'd like to know, if a hat could whisper, what would it say? You know what to do. Hit the contact button on any page at annatizard.com and let me know your thoughts if you'd like a shout out on the show. And if you feel like reading another much longer tale about a painting that comes alive, though in very different circumstances, you might try reading the second book in my series, Eye for Immortality. For details, go to annatizard.com and look under the Book of Exquisite Corpse. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstoryum. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.